Hey everybody, it's Modern Refugee. How is everybody doing this evening? Hey there, Library Lizard, Dog, Monkey Food Garden. Appreciate you always doing the modding for me. I really do. Candace, Dirt Farmer. It is about 15 degrees outside where we're at right now, and there is no weather. There's no temperatures above freezing for at least the next 10 days here. So it's making ice big time. Hey, Captain Bart. If you go past the public accesses out here on the lake, they are absolutely packed with guys going out ice fishing. There are vehicles and trailers and snow machines and four wheelers everywhere. Yeah, so there's probably more people out on the ice right now than there's in town. Hey, 1776. Hey there, racing. Good to have you here. Hey, Tempest Prepper. I don't know if I've seen you on here before. Hey, following the light. Yeah, so I'm doing my live stream a little bit early because I'm going to be on Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival's channel. He's been around at least as long as I have, maybe even longer. And I don't know. He's just one of the. I've noticed with YouTube with the algorithms and the live streams and all that other stuff, you get kind of grouped into your like the channels that have the same content that you have and you're about the same size as them. That's what comes up in your feed, and that's kind of how I've got to know Prepper Now and like Prepper Dog and Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival and Roaming Prepper. These guys, they're all sort of in my, I guess, my little group or whatever you want to call it on there. But I've noticed that they will put channels that are similar to yours in size kind of together or in viewership. I probably got more subscribers but less views than some of those guys do. So yeah, it all balances out in the long run. Yeah, we got some cold weather coming here. Like I said, it's there's actually a hike that I've wanted to do on the ice for the last couple of years, but I don't know. We'll see how that goes. I got to wait at least another about 2 weeks before I can attempt something like that. But there is a unusual rock formation out on the lake, and it is a huge attraction in the summertime for the kayakers because you can't access it from land. You have to access it from water, which means you either got to take a boat over there or you got to take a kayak over there when the ice is off. And when the ice is on, you either got to hike across the ice or you have to take a snow machine or something like that. But it's something that I've wanted to do. I've wanted because it's about I don't know, it's a couple of miles from the nearest like public access, so you'd have to park there, hike out on the ice, and then hike. There's a point that actually goes out about 100 yards. You got to go around that point, and then there's a little bit of a natural harbor that comes in there, and then you got to hike across to it. But it's an unusual thing. I wish it'd be a state park, but it's not really a state park. And the people that own the land around that's a gated community. You can't get in there unless you even know somebody that's in there. So anyway, the only way if I want to see this is I'm going to have to hike with my bad knee across the ice. So that's kind of on the list to do one of these days. But it's got to be, pretty much this time of year because that's the only time that the ice would be safe enough out there. Tempest Prepper, I've been on a couple of times, but I haven't been able to make some lives. Oh, that's all right. You're welcome to be here. Hey, Hudson Valley, looking forward to have a little chat with you. I appreciate you putting up that link there, Monkey Food Garden, as well. Hey, Sunset, how are you doing? Hopefully, you're a lot warmer than we are. We are pretty chilly right now. Hey there, Frontline Warrior from Mid Michigan. Just went to the Amish Bend and Dent store. There used to be a couple of them over by Sanilac County in the thumb of Michigan here that had they had Amish stores like that. There were two or three of them that were over there, but the one that I always liked was the one that was over in Clare, and it was basically out of the back of a farm. They put a pole barn on the back of the farm there, and they sold their Amish stuff that they made, like cheese and milk and eggs and that kind of stuff. But then they also sold the dented canned stuff. And my wife and I, we would go over there about twice a year when the kids were still in school yet. We would go over there about twice a year, and we would just make bank on stuff over there. We'd buy like pound packages of bacon for like 99 cents, and, boxes of cereal for like $1, and, canned stuff that was maybe just a little bit dinged or dented up. You buy like 4 cans of that for $1. So we're talking about 2015, 2014, 2015, maybe 11 years ago or so. And that's when our kids were teenagers, so they just ate us out of house and home. We would make trips over there, and then we would get stuff for my friends and stuff too when we were over there. So -8 Fahrenheit all week. Yeah, you got a big cold coming there too. Handyman, hello. Tricky question. Do you agree with the statement that in order to get a new item, you have to somehow get rid of an existing item? Otherwise, stuff would pile up very quickly. I don't know. I'm the wrong guy to ask that because I'm kind of sentimental. Look at all the junk around me here. Every little thing around here has some kind of sentimental value to me. And then, of course, I like old stuff. So I don't want to say I'm a pack rat or a hoarder or anything like that. Of course, you probably couldn't tell from my pantry, but I I get attached to stuff, and I like the history and the stories behind stuff, which gives me the opportunity to explain how all that stuff works and how it can be valuable to modern preparedness on my channel. So um I guess the big thing is like, if you've got stuff for a vehicle and you get rid of that vehicle, you need to get rid of that stuff. If you have stuff that you've replaced that's completely worn out, I would say get rid of that stuff. I absolutely hate like drills like this and stuff, because once the batteries go, these become basically obsolete, even though they still work. And the batteries cost more than the drills do. And to me, that's just, that's manufactured waste, more or less. Stuff like that really kind of like ticks me off. The same thing, like, a printer cartridge cost more than just a new printer with a cartridge in it, stuff like that. I don't know. And that's how that my father-in-law used to complain about that a lot when he was still alive, that built-in obsolescence that came with stuff. And it's the same thing now with like trucks and other pieces of equipment, and even to a certain extent pew pews. Pew pews back in the day when I started selling those things, if somebody purchased one of the items that I sold at that time, that they had that for the rest of their life. Yeah, they might use it a lot and something might wear out, like an extractor or something like that, but as a general rule, that would be, I got my grandfather's 22 here. It's a pump action Model 6 22 with a hammer outside and the takedown screw. That gun was manufactured in 1911, because it's stamped right on there that's when that was manufactured. That gun has never had a part replaced in it, and I still use it from time to time, although I don't use it as much as I used to anymore, because I don't use 22 as much as I used to. But that firearm is still accurate as heck. In fact, it's probably more accurate than my 1022 that I bought in 1997. So that built-in obsolescence, that keeps people going back and buying more and more and more. It's a marketing thing. If you buy something that's good for life, you're not going to go out and buy one every 2 or 3 years. That causes a problem for the manufacturers. So the stuff has to break, and then you have to go buy something new. So anyway, that's kind of off on a rant there, but that's basically how I look at it. Hey there, from Wisconsin, Tempest Prepper. Love Wisconsin. I love northern Wisconsin. Northern Wisconsin is the bomb. Like, if you draw a line from like a little bit north of Green Bay, right across, everything north of that line between there and the Upper Peninsula, that's the bomb up there. Like Rhinelander and stuff. Love it up there. I'm a cast iron junk. I got a lot of cast iron stuff too. Most of the stuff was passed down to me. A couple little things that I've picked up some places. We got a couple antique stores around here. I hit them from time to time. Look what kind of Wagner or Griswold or old lodge stuff that's hanging on the cast iron board they got there. But yeah, that kind of stuff, I like that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm kind of sentimental with stuff, so I probably should get rid of more stuff than what I do. 14 degrees there where Hudson Valley is. And we're probably about at the same latitude. If Hudson Valley there is in kind of northern New York. If you draw a line straight across, we're probably in the same area. Hey, Coylin. Hey, Washburn. How you doing? Yeah, disposable society. It's very, very true. Very true. And then people are so darn finicky and picky anymore, and the big thing that gets me is with pews and with knives, especially. You'll get people that will just complain. They get a knife and, oh, that knife doesn't fit my hand. And, oh, I want better, scales on it. And I just roll my head, this knife right here. I pull this one out a lot because this is kind of my original Kephart style knife here. You look at this knife, you can see that the blade's a lot thinner. But what is that? That's just a square scale on that knife right there. That's riveted on there, and it's a spear point blade. But that is not much different from this modern knife scales. That's how knives were originally made. But when I go on like knife forums and stuff, and people say, "Oh, that's so boxy and that doesn't fit my hand," how are you going to survive the apocalypse if you're complaining about the grip on your knife that doesn't fit my hand? It's kind of like, get a little tougher anyway. For what that's worth. Oh boy, 2 rants in what, like the last 10 minutes. I need to quit. Companies spend more money trying to make something fail. And that's what it is. And I've been told that about new pickup trucks, especially. You really have to watch what you buy, that the electronics in them are literally made to last about 5 years and 100,000 miles, and they're going to start giving you problems and everything. Guy I work with, I had to go out and move his truck. He leases a truck, and this was a brand new Chevy truck. I got in the truck. He said, "Get in the truck and move it. The key fob is in the cup holder, whatever." So I jumped in to move that truck. The whole thing was a TV screen, like where your instruments are, and they had like the little Chevy emblem and like lightning bolts or whatever the heck, going across the screen when you fire it up. And I'm thinking to myself, I felt like I was in a movie theater watching the previews to coming attractions. I'm like, bro, I just want to start this truck and move it. I want my tack, I want my fuel gauge, I want my voltage meter, I want the temperature and the oil pressure in my engine. And it's nice to have the indicator lights, for the brakes and the battery and that kind of stuff. So if something does go wrong, that light lets you know so you can go check it out or whatever. That's all cool. I don't have a problem with any of that. But at that point, the technology needs to cease. And like if you have anti-lock brakes on your vehicle, if the anti-lock brakes malfunction, sometimes that's bad. I would rather have, yes, you can have that electronic stuff on there, but I still want the redundancy of manual or analog after the fact. So I want redundancy built into all my stuff as much as I can possibly afford in this day and age. Hope everybody can understand that. There must be a tipping point to planned obsolescence where people decide, why buy a brand new one? I will just, yeah. And you know what? Look around, how many places have old school coffee pots anymore, like you put on the stove with the percolator where thumps on the top? They're hard to find. Yeah, you could find like really cheap ones, but like a better one, they cost an arm and a leg. They're hard to find because a lot of people are going back to them because like the Mr. Coffee and the Proctor Silex, that stuff's junk. It lasts like a couple of years and you're out the door with it. Pay $180 for a good knife, and you have to have it sharpened or reprofile the edge right out of the box. And that's true too. There are some knives that you can get inexpensive right out of the box that are good. But as a general rule, if you want a really high-end handle and all that other stuff on, yeah, you're gonna pay for it, and you might have to take that secondary bevel off of it. I got a couple of knives here that I just have when I get up north and I go to the knife place up north, I just have them sharpen them for me when I take them in there because they can do such a better job. And then you have all your more modern steels, like your 3V, and well, I don't have anything that's got Magna Cut, but I've got 3V and I got a Crewware knife and stuff. Those knives are a lot more difficult to sharpen at home than just a 1095 is, and that's kind of why I like that. I like this SE6. It's just 1095 steel, but I'll tell you what, this knife has been, it seems like it's a little big, but this knife is the best all-around camp knife I have ever used for the money. And I bought that when they were less than they were right around $100. I think I paid $96 plus shipping for that when I purchased that, and that was prior to COVID. So that tells you that's been a while. Hey, Coney, give me a truck with a stick, headlamps, inside light for the maps, gas tank. I can actually open and close. Oh yeah, 4 good tires. Yeah, and then too, if you've got to change a tire on one of those pickup trucks where they got that tire mounted up underneath the box, man, that's a heck of a thing to get that thing. If that truck's got, a few miles on it, actually did some stuff with it, it's almost impossible to get that tire down without like breaking something permanently. Then you're driving around with a tire in the back end of your truck and you're taking up your cargo space. So, you got that whole thing going on too. That's why I've pretty much stuck to trying to repair a flat tire on the side of the road instead of trying to change that tire, because you know what, all the stuff that they give you to change a tire sucks. I remember I had an old truck that I was, had quite a few miles on it. I carried a regular floor jack around in the back end of that truck in case I had to do anything on that, because everything that came with that truck factory stock to like change a tire was terrible to use. Absolutely terrible. I have a stovetop percolator and a Kelly kettle. I got a Kelly kettle somewhere. I like that Kelly kettle. That's a neat little trick to take that out camping or something like that. Throw a few sticks in there and you're good to go. But yeah, I've got a couple of top percolators, and that's something worth having. And once you buy it, unless you really ram it around with it, it's gonna last for a long time. The brake sensors and wheels are notorious for malfunctioning. This dangerous freedom. In some vehicles, I had an '05 Blazer that anti-lock would lock up even in the crosswind. Yeah, I had that too, and I actually disabled. It was a '98. It was a '98 half-ton Chevrolet, and I actually disabled the anti-lock and just had manual. But back then, you still had the manual, the manual stuff on there, so it still would function the way it was supposed to. Hudson Valley D2 is fine by me. All the steels have specific uses. D2 is like one of your more common knife steels. That Rapid River Knife Works up in Rapid River, Michigan. That's all they use is D2. Now I think they're starting to branch out into other steels, but as a general rule, 90% of their selection is all D2 tool steel. Hey there, Teresa, how you doing? Yeah, cars, trucks, y'all can actually work on without a laptop and $1,000 scan tool. And I don't know if most people know this, but with agriculture, they have built so much software into combines and tractors and stuff. All the new stuff like the John Deere and stuff. They don't want the farmers working on that stuff. They want the actual people from John Deere to go out to the field, diagnose and fix that stuff. So they made that software in such a way where the people that own the equipment, and we're talking millions of dollars worth of equipment. You got a couple of tractors and you got a brand new combine and you got your planters and your plows and all that stuff to work the land nowadays. The way things are, you've got $1 million in just equipment. And they force the farmers to go and have that done. And like I said, I don't know if most people know that or not, but that is pretty common knowledge in the larger farming communities. Hey Jody, how you doing? I carry a floor jack in my 95 3/4 ton. Yeah, I carried a floor jack until maybe 2013 or so, 2014. I had a floor jack in my vehicle at all times. And floor jacks are something too. If you're a prepper out there and you're worried about things going to hell in a handbasket where you have to look after yourself, a floor jack is one of those. A good 2-ton floor jack that you can roll around and move around a little bit. Those things are awesome to have, and you should really have them. I don't have a lot of tools here, but I've got tools to take care of the basic stuff. If I got to jack a car up and I got to take a tire off, I got an air compressor, I got an impact gun, and I got a got a floor jack, so I can at least jack up a vehicle, take a tire off, check some brakes, do some basic things. Not anything, super crazy like pulling a motor out or anything like that. I don't think I have enough equipment here to do something like that, but there are basic things that I have here where I can fix things if the economy goes to hell and you can't afford a new vehicle. And, there's a lot more common SHTFs than the whole zombie apocalypse thing, but I'm here to tell you, people are still going to need stuff done. And if you're good with even some basic things, that gives you a skill set that you can, pass on, or you can trade for something else, for barter type stuff. Hey, I'll fix this for you. And that goes back to the story I told you guys different times on my live streams where I was reading where these two guys in the Soviet Union, when it collapsed in 1991, they they were good fixing stuff, and that actually kept them fed. And he said the one time they didn't have nothing to eat for like 2 days, and the guy came over who lived a few blocks over from those big housing projects that they have like around Moscow there, and he had a car that something didn't work on the car, and he said, I need this fixed. And he said, what do I got to pay you guys? And they said, well, we ain't had nothing to eat for a couple of days. He said, all right. He said, I'll come back. He left the car there, walked home, and he said he'd come back in a couple hours, 2-3 hours. They had the car fixed for him, so it was repaired. And he gave them a frying pan full of fried potatoes, some bacon, and a pint of vodka. And he said it was the best food that they ever had in their life. And that's, that was that's an SHTF that not a lot of preppers talk about. When the Soviet Union collapsed, there was a lot of what you would call SHTF, societal collapse type problems that took place in the Soviet Union back then, around 1991. So true, our local trading post here in Northern Ontario only charges $2 per knife to sharpen them, still butchering with 30-year-old knives. Yeah. And I tell you what, that's another skill. Working in a hardware store, I've had people call up there because we sharpen chainsaw chains and stuff. I've had people come up there and say, hey, do you guys sharpen knives? And we don't there, but I guess we probably would if there were a lot of people that were calling for it or whatnot. But we got people that call up there, say, hey, we don't know how to sharpen a knife. Can you sharpen our knives for whatever, for hunting season or whatever? So, there again, that's another skill. If you know how to hone a knife and get an edge back on it, that's something that you could barter for stuff. Coney B, an extra glass percolator on top or two in case you drop one. Yeah, I got mine, just got the lid on it, and they thump. You don't see it, but you can hear it thumping, and that works really good. The new stuff has kill switches. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Well, it's like they got limiters of that. Started like when I was in high school. They put those limiting chips in the vehicles and stuff, so you could only go about so fast, and then it would kick you off a little bit till you drop below a certain speed before you could pick it back up again. JD, yeah, Hudson Valley and I are going to have a live stream at 7. That's why I'm on here earlier today here. As long as I can get all my stuff squared away and charged and good, but I should be good to go because I got to do the live stream for his channel on my phone, not my regular computer here. So I still don't have quite my one of these days I want to have my computer set up good enough so I can do some interviews for some other YouTube prepping channels that I like. It'd be really neat to do a couple of interviews down the road if I can ever get that figured out. High lift jack, farm jack's good to have too. Tons of uses. There was one guy, hey, Tactical Muffin Top. There was one fella that I know. They remodeled one of the big box stores around here, and they were actually going to discard the hoist that they had at that big box store, and he made them basically a scrap offer of like $500 for that. They accepted the offer. They just told him you had to be here to get rid of it at a certain time, and he took that thing back to his pole barn, and he somehow got that up and mounted that in his pole barn so he could work on vehicles. And I'll tell you what, there was a couple of times I went over to his place and we worked on vehicles, his and mine, and that you can't even imagine how awesome that was to have a hoist in there. And the one thing that I had to do on one of my old pickup trucks is I had to replace the fuel pump, and we had to take the pickup box off of my truck to access the fuel pump on top of the gas tank. And we unbolted my box, disconnected all the wiring. We put the tabs underneath there, and we lifted the box right off of the frame, changed the fuel pump, put the box back on. It still took us like about 5 hours to do it. But if I would have had to pay somebody to do that, it probably would have even been worth saving the truck at that point in time. Uh, Hey, Patriot Preacher. Our hardware store was a drop off location for a knife sharpening guy. Yeah, we don't have, if we had one of those, like belt sanders that's mounted on a bench, we could probably do that, but we don't have that. All we got is a big grinding wheel, and then we got the wheel to sharpen the chainsaw chains, but that ain't the same stuff. My buddy got a post lift that way. He found a shop that was getting new lifts and offered $300 in a case of beer. Yeah, that's kind of how it went with this guy, and that other hoist. I don't think that other hoist was more than 10 years old. I mean, it still had good paint and stuff on it. So yeah, that was one of those things. Boy, I tell you what, if you had, and I know different people that have done stuff like that. And see, this is where it gets into, the prepper and the self-sufficient and stuff. It's not, there's so much to that self-sufficient lifestyle. Like I know one guy, he's got a walk-in cooler. Got a walk-in cooler in his barn, and he bought that walk-in cooler from parts from somebody. The panels were like 4x8 sheets, and they had the insulation stuff in them, and they were that like corrugated aluminum inside and out. And he bought those panels, and he picked up a used compressor somewhere, and he put a little drain in the floor where he wanted to mount that, and he put those sides up in that barn, and he made himself, so if he butchers a steer, he can hang a steer in his own barn in the cooler. And it's, that kind of stuff is the do-it-yourself stuff, and the homesteading type stuff that really can support not just a family but an entire area. And whenever butchering took place, like back on the farm, like my grandparents say, that was like a neighborhood thing. If you were butchering hogs or you were butchering a couple of steers, they got the tractors and the chains out, and they heated the cauldrons up to scald the hogs. And you because if you don't know how to butcher a hog, you actually scald the hog and scrape the hair off. That's how they did it. They had these little things they were like a handle, and it was like cupped metal that went on the bottom side of that, and that's what you scrape the hog with to get the hair off the hog, because you didn't skin the hog. You wanted the skin on the hog when you smoked it and stuff to give that a certain amount of protection and seal in the meat and the flavor, I guess is the best way to put it. And even when we different times when we butchered chickens, when I was younger, when I was like 9, 10, 11 years old, the neighbors would come over, and we would have a chicken butchering day. We'd butcher 80, 90 chickens. Mom would raise them. They would bring some chickens over. They had like a cage that they would put the chickens in, bring them over, and we would dispatch them, and got the boiling water to pluck the chickens. Now they got pluckers and they got all this other stuff, but that was a community event, was butchering time. Oh, my buddy got a post lift that way. Oh, I already read that one. Should be a great live tonight. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping we'll have a good conversation. I'm sure we can. We started 3 years ago with bartering our eggs to the neighbors instead of cash. Milled lumber, homemade wine, beer. No cash involved. Well, I remember different times when we had power outages or whatever. This is back when I was younger as well. The farmer would bring over old generator so mom could plug the freezer in for a couple hours. And then when that was all done and over with, mom would take over pickles that she canned, or jam, or bake loaves of bread. Mom always did that. Mom always had a way to pay for something without cash. She would cook something, she would bake something, she would make something. There were different times where she mended clothes. All these things are, if there would be some type of long-term economic collapse or whatever, those type of skills to be able to put together the things that you need are really worth it. Oh yeah, beer definitely sweetened the deal. Some of that homemade beer, that's pretty potent stuff though. Wow, walk-in cooler. Very cool idea. Well, The guy that I work for now, they actually built a cooler with like this air conditioning unit, and it's similar to some kind of like portable air conditioning unit that they use on the farms now for the livestock. And they built basically like a little shack with, OSB board, 2x4s, 2x6s, whatever. They lined it with foam board. They had a roof on it. It was like a little rectangular cube, but then it had this like portable air conditioning unit attached to it, and that would actually bring the temperature down to something like 40 degrees or whatever, and it had a thermostat in it, so it would keep it at that. And the thing of it was is this thing was basically portable. They could move it around with a forklift, so you could kind of like stage it wherever that you needed to stage it or whatever. So yeah, it was, I watched them, kind of build that this late this summer, early this fall, and I thought it was pretty ingenious thing. And I don't know if I would have enough use for a walk-in cooler for what I do, but it was neat to kind of pick up that information. Uh, yeah, and then too, when you butcher and stuff, it it takes a fair amount of work and equipment. If you're like butchering an entire steer and you want to grind that all up, a good pedestal, a good heavy pedestal grinder, and a meat bandsaw, all these things come in handy. And like I said, it's sort of like the share and the tools thing. One guy's got this and another guy's got that. And I often say that too, like when we go hiking and camping and that kind of stuff, everybody doesn't need to carry a shovel. If one person has a shovel, same thing with like a hatchet. Not everybody's got to carry a hatchet. If one person's got a hatchet, you got a party of 3 or 4 people, you could share those tools and save yourself a ton of weight for everybody carrying a hatchet or everybody carrying a shovel. It's just a lot easier to have one guy carry that, and then have one guy carry the food, and till you get out to your spot where you make camp or whatever. But sharing that stuff saves a lot of time and weight. Oh yeah, and they wanted that cooler specifically for deer because they were killing deer already in the summertime because they have the crop damage permits around here. So the farmers that can prove crop damage to the DNR basically will get X amount of permits where they can shoot the deer out of season, basically. Well, then to kill them deer out of season, you're shooting deer to basically, before Labor Day, you got to have some way to cool that meat down, or that meat will go bad on you really quick. And, you can, one deer, you can quarter up and throw in a 100 quart cooler, usually 150 quart cooler. But, when you're harvesting multiple deer, maybe 3, 4 deer in an evening, and it's going to be 75 degrees the next day. You want to get that hide off as quickly as possible, get that hung up somewhere that's got a little bit of cold air on it. But like I said, one deer isn't a big deal to quarter that up and throw that in coolers with some bags of ice. But I'll tell you what, if you want to hang multiple deer, it really is nice to have a cooler. Walk-in cooler is on the list of wants on the homestead to store what we grow and hang deer, hogs. Yeah, yeah, and I tell you what, it's awesome. It's awesome to have access to something like that where you can some of those bigger, more handy. But I'll tell you what, every person I know that has some type of larger piece of equipment like that would be beneficial, that was all do it yourself. Nobody ever called up like the refrigeration place, say, I want this installed in my, I want a walk-in cooler installed in my garage. That would cost you tens of thousands of dollars to even remotely consider something like that. But if you can pick up the stuff that people don't think is very valuable, you can certainly do a lot if you have a certain amount of know-how, or if you know people that know how to do that stuff, or you can kind of press their knowledge into action. We're always picking each other's brains at work about different things, about this or that or whatever. And me, I'm terrible for it. I'm constantly asking questions. Why did they do this with that and whatnot? Because you never know, something might happen where I might not have access to that person's knowledge, down the road. But people change, jobs changes, people move away, get different. You're not always working with the same people. You're constantly being exposed to other people. So you want to be able to take advantage of that and pull any information that might help in some type of long-term situation. And most of the things I'm talking about here tonight, these are would be for long-term situations. Just a 10-day power outage is one thing, but if there's a 6-year economic collapse, you really got to start looking at some of those longer term things. How are we going to sustain ourselves? And two, when you get into prepping, people kind of want to buy everything all at once, and really that's not the most economical way to do it. It's a small step at a time game to get, and then everybody's situation is different, so it takes a lot. um, People, when they start to realize, as a general rule, people, when they start to realize, hey, things aren't right with society, things could collapse and break down, and I wouldn't have all the systems in place that I have now. How would I take care of myself? As a general rule, people go through a little bit of a panic stage. And of course, what do? They start buying stuff. Oh, well, this video said to buy that, and that video said to buy this, and I read this and it said to have that. And so you'll get people that'll just kind of run out blindly spending for a year or maybe two, and then all of a sudden they kind of get to a point and they're like, well, wait a minute, a couple things maybe happened, and then all the stuff they bought, they kind of realized that stuff really wasn't that helpful. And as a general rule, if the stuff is helpful for you right now today, like whatever tools or canning equipment or radios to talk to your neighbors with, if that stuff is useful to you right now, it's going to be useful in an SHTF situation. If it's something that's only useful if SHTF happens, there's probably something better where you can get multiple uses out of stuff, if you guys can understand what I'm trying to say there. Uh, I've seen an insulated trailer used to cater Amish wagons. That's interesting. I guess I've never seen something like that. The catering that the Amish did around here back in the day when my mom used to go into those things and stuff, they would have it at their venue or place or whatever. So if you wanted to have the Amish cook for you, you had to kind of go to them. They didn't come to you. And there was one time Mom took me along with a church. One of my children was younger at the time, and I took them along with us too. And we went and we had this summertime chicken dinner. They had the windows all open and curtains, and there was breeze blowing through there, and they came out, and we had we had coleslaw and potatoes and chicken dinner and the whole 9 yards. And it was actually pretty tasty, but it wasn't cheap. It was pretty darn expensive even for that time, but because it was like a church function or whatever, it was that's why we went along. Oh, hey there, Norwind. How you doing? Spring bear hunt is always a rush. It usually takes four of us hours to butcher. Silver skin takes a lot of time, but the coolers help. Thanks. Again, really feels like family on this channel. Oh, nope. I appreciate that. That's really sweet for you to say that. Yeah, like I said, I think it's just best to discuss. We could discuss anything under the sun, but those basic things that got us to where we're at, I think, are the things that can help people in SHTF situations down the road. Yeah, when I got my bear back there in 2015, I actually bribed the local party store to put my bear in their cooler overnight. And how I bribed them is the two people that were working, I went to the bar, I bought them dinner, and I brought that back and I gave it to them while they were in there working. And that's what I did to um, take my bear in there. The next day, when I went back in to collect the bear, the manager was there, and the manager was kind of mad that, the two people on nights let me put my bear in there. So I smoothed the ruffled feathers with that. Again, with food, I went and I said, you know what, there's no reason why I can't, buy you lunch too. So I went and got him lunch and brought that back. And that's how that all worked. But see, it's how you handle situations like that sometimes. So uh, it's so cold here. The harbors and ices are all froze over, and the ferries can't get out of the harbor. Yeah, I believe that. I watch different shipping things for here in the Great Lakes, and the cutters are keeping the St. Clair River open. And there was a couple of freighters that have to go to Chicago. They were breaking that up, so they were going upriver to get into Lake Huron so they could transit over to a Chicago. But that was just this morning, like by Algonac and Marine City. Those are the towns that are along the St. Clair River there that lead out to Port Huron. City Prepper just got done vacuum sealing some ground beef and steaks. That sounds awesome. Yeah, if you got a food saver vacuum sealer, you can really get a good if you get good deals on meat and stuff, or if you butcher yourself, you can get that stuff. It lasts a heck of a lot longer in those vacuum sealed packages. It just those vacuum sealed bags anymore are ridiculously expensive, hard to come by too sometimes. Um, oh. Hi, Mother Refugee. Glad you could stop by. We've been getting baby photographs pretty much every day, so we'll keep an eye on our little grandchild. Got to be a ham radio prepping. Yeah, you know what? My friend down the street here, he's really gotten into it. He's getting into it where he's like hitting repeaters and he's trying different antenna setups for power and whatnot. It's really kind of his thing. He really enjoys doing all that stuff. I have the stuff here, but I'm nowhere into it as much as he is. But I'll tell you what, he's got a heck of a setup there. We talk back and forth here from my place to his place, and it's just like we're in the same room talking to each other. We got such decent signals. And he's even given me little, I don't have my right coat down here, but he even gave me a couple of little kind of like quick detaches for the antennas and stuff, because there's different setups for that. So you don't wreck that kind of sensitive stuff inside on them Baofangs where you're putting the antenna on. There's like a quick connect. If you're constantly screwing on, taking off an antenna, you can damage that inside there. That's another thing I didn't know, and I learned from him. uh, Ohio Valley Prepping. How are you? The space station will talk to you on the ham. They will answer you when you call them. That's awesome. I guess I didn't know that. And I like it for the weather. I can key into the different weather here because we're on Lake Huron. So we there's one of the radio towers is in Detour, and Detour is up kind of leading into the St. Mary's River to go from Lake Huron up into Lake Superior. And that's a lot of times where I'll get the weather from is from that NOAA weather station out of Detour, because they give all the lake forecasts. So whatever's going on out of the lake eventually is going to get to us here on shore, and it kind of gives me a heads up on stuff. Yeah, the Baofang, pull one out here, where this screws in. I don't know if you can, maybe if you guys can pick it up on there, and not too well. But if you look there, you can see there's like a little wire that sticks out, kind of like a coax cable. That could get bent and damaged if you're kind of ramming around on this stuff. So it's sort of a quick connect. Once that's screwed in, you just leave that, and then you do the quick connect on your antennas. And like I said, I'm sure he got everything off of just off of Amazon or whatever. But he can quick connect onto the different antennas, and the different antenna links make quite a bit of a difference too. I think Hudson Valley is a ham, but I've got these type of foldable antennas. But from my own experience around here, these antennas that are about this size or maybe the next one that's just a little bit bigger. These, I think, work the best for me from kind of my applications. I've got one of the really long one of those flat ones. I don't know, it's got to be probably about 3 foot long. And that one seems to work pretty good. But then I got a couple smaller ones of them that I don't really care for them as well. They just don't work the same. An SMA connector. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, ham radio Elmer. Like I said, I don't know all the technical names for all this stuff. And I just kind of I shoot from the hip a lot. Uh, yeah, I can imagine Monkey Food Garden. You guys, man, that cold weather down there in Texas, South Louisiana, and stuff where you guys are there, boy. You guys aren't used to that up here. That's like when we get the 100+ degree temperatures up here and the 100% humidity. I'm not built for heat and humidity. I'm built for cold weather. But yeah, I think people get a little bit too picky sometimes about their equipment. They really boy, if you're forced to use whatever you got to use, sometimes it's best to just kind of keep your mouth shut and just deal with it. But people love to complain. Yeah, my friend Karen down there in Tennessee, they were still out of power this morning. Now I haven't heard nothing from her recently here, but they've been out of power ever since the beginning of the onset of that storm there. Now I know they were doing all right, but some of the people around them were starting to, have issues. The longer a power outage goes on, especially if you got older folks, people that rely on stuff like oxygen and stuff, that is that's when it starts to become problematic, where people's main kind of systems start failing. And there's so many people nowadays, they don't even know how to cook. They're used to throwing stuff in the microwave or whatever. Well, now if you've got to cook with over a camp stove or something, that's a whole nother type of cooking. Pretty much all your ready-made food and stuff, most of that's out the window. I mean, you can kind of maybe make it work. Like if they're in plastic pouches, you could drop the pouches in the boiling water or whatnot. But as a general rule, people have gotten so used to convenience and they don't know how to cook from scratch. And if you got a solid base in cooking, there's a lot you can do with a Coleman stove, but people just aren't like that nowadays, unfortunately. Hudson Valley, I recently purchased 3 solar nodes, 3 handheld nodes, and 3 T-decks. Cellular networks have been proven unreliable. Yeah, well, from what I got told from a somebody that works on the cell phone systems, that actually texts are the most reliable part of cell phone service coverage, whatever, because a text will, how is this explained to me? A text will try multiple times to connect. So if it doesn't go through right away, it'll try to go through again, where a phone call, it either works or it doesn't. And from the way it was explained to me, and I don't know Jack Diddley about it really, but I was told that for what a cell phone, the things that a cell phone does, the text is the most reliable part of that system, so to speak. What's with the chap? Where was that? Where was that there? Ham Radio Elmer, what's with the Japanese hat to the right? Fill us in. That's my lead farmer hat. That's why I bought that in case I ever got to be a lead farmer. But I like hats with big brims to keep the sun off my neck and stuff when I'm working outside. I've got different boonie hats, and I got kind of those Australian hats that you can roll up to the side. So I'm not saying I would never wear that outside working, but I might wear that outside working if it was really hot and I had to do a lot of stuff. I know I'd look goofier than heck, but I'll be here to tell you it works. But like I said, I bought it because I thought it looked like the lead farmer hat from Tropic Thunder, so that's why I bought that. Probably won't get out till Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah, Dangerous Freedom, you're right down there in that, aren't you? Hey, Mary Gallagher, how you doing? Coney B, great to hear that you've kept your power. We've had to be amazing today. We didn't lose power. Yeah, I've seen pictures here where people were driving like on the snow down there, and you guys just don't have the snow removal equipment and stuff. It makes it a lot harder to get around. Still got my old Cobra CB radio. Yup, I've got a Midland. I think mine's a Midland that I got out in the garage. The one that I got hooked up in the garage. That's to talk to my buddy that lives over a couple of blocks there. Him and I can talk back and forth on that, which is kind of cool too. Oh yeah, the Saginaw River. I can't even imagine how many shanties are on the Saginaw River today. The Saginaw River is a big ice fishing draw. A lot of walleye fishermen go on there, but the current on the Saginaw River is crazy. So you really want to be cautious when you're going out on them rivers because you really have to use the old brain to make sure you don't go out there and start punching other holes. You look for a hole that's already in there, and you just fish in that hole. You don't disturb that ice any more than you absolutely have to. Ham Radio Elmer, hey modern, I follow you. Good chat to you. I love walleye fishing. Oh yeah, walleye is amazing. Walleye tastes great. That's probably in one of the top three fish out of the Great Lakes here that people like. Perch and perch and walleye are the two main ones that people like, and I like crappie. I mean, I've had crappie that's very similar to both perch and walleye. Northern pike's good too if you know how to clean it, but yeah, that everybody's out on the ice today, big time. Uh, Yeah, I had an old CB. It was an old, I think it was a Cobra portable CB, and I had it here, and I don't know what I ever did with it because I was going to try to refurbish that one too with some new rechargeable batteries and stuff, but I don't know what I did with it. So one of these years, if when I clean everything out, if I run into it, I might pull that in. And I'm sure if I get a new vehicle, I'm going to set up eventually I'm going to have to get a new pickup. And when that happens, I'm actually going to try to set up some communication stuff in that truck. I'm going to try to get an old school CB in there, and then I'm going to try to get some type of mount so I can put my GMRS Baofangs in there so we can use them because since I've gotten that GMRS license, I've gotten radios for all of the vehicles here for us and a couple of different frequencies. So if anything happens, we have the ability to talk back and forth. So we know, hey, if our cell phones quit working, go grab the GMRS radio and turn that guy on a certain channel, and then we have a certain amount of communications. As long as we're within about a 5-6 mile radius, we're good. Oh yeah, I can only imagine all the uh, all the snow machines and stuff out on Lake Erie. Oh, no problem, Jody. I enjoy having a chat with you guys. Teutonic DNR did a hybrid of a coho, a walleye, and a muskie. They call it a Kowalski. That's new. I guess I never heard that. I caught it was a cross between a Chinook and a pink salmon one time when we were fishing up on the St. Mary's River in the Sioux. And it looked like a steelhead. And that's what I thought I caught was a steelhead. And when we got back up to the boat launch, there's a little fish cleaning station there. And there was a DNR biologist there. And he told me it was called a splake because it was a cross between a pink salmon and a coho. And no, not a splake, a panook. They called it a panook. It was a cross between a pink and a chinook. And like I said, it looked like a steelhead. It tasted fine, but yeah, that was another cross they had. We were actually up there pink salmon fishing because when the pinks run at the St. Mary's River, you can. The in-laws used to go up there. They used to rent a hotel room that had a kitchen, and there'd be one crew back at the hotel room and the kitchen with the pressure canner and the canning stuff, and the other crew was out on the river fishing. When they'd have their fish, they would come back in and the hotel crew would start canning that stuff, and then they would switch places throughout the day or the week that they were up there. And then when they came home, they brought home quarts of canned pink salmon, and then that's what they put up then for a year or two, because they wouldn't always hit the run every year. They would try to can as much as they could to last them until the next run. So that was always a big thing. And I did get a chance to go up there and fish for pinks with those guys, but we never caught enough that year to can anything. But it was certainly an interesting experience. And all you do is fish them with big old spoons. You just cast a big old spoon like a daredevil or whatever, and they would hit on that. And they pretty good fight too. Hudson Valley, I have radio just building a mesh network for redundancy. That's cool. Hey there, Patrice. Good evening from Northern Illinois. Oh, I'm sure Mother Refugee's getting tired of the cold weather. She's not as much into the cold weather as I am. One good thing about cold weather is it kills off the bugs for a little bit. Yeah, we got probably more snow than we've had in the last 2 or 3 years here too. We've got enough where they're starting to pile it up on the corners and stuff, and like the places with big parking lots, they got actual mounds of snow like we used to play on when we were kids. We loved those big mounds of snow. Well, guys, it's been going on about an hour here, and I am going to get my microphone out here so I can be ready for Hudson Valley when he's ready to go. I appreciate all you guys always stopping by here. This is kind of like the old visiting that my mother and grandmother and dad would do with the neighbors and stuff. I've really gotten to a point where I enjoy these live streams with you guys, because we just sit and we discuss the what's going on, and the different aspects of preparedness, because you know what, there's always something to pick up and learn. And I love the way you guys interact on the chat here. I pick up stuff every time I'm on a live stream. I pick up something from the chat that I didn't know beforehand, so I always appreciate it. Oh, yeah, Norwind. I usually around the 1st of March. If I start anything before the 1st of March, they get leggy. They get too long, and I like to prevent that. I mean, I even got different ways where I'll lower the lights right down to where the seeds come up. But if I plant things too early, if I start planting things in February, they'll start growing a little bit too big. Then they get too much stem, and that kind of messes with them. They're not as strong a plant then if they have that long spindly stem. So I do start seeds, but it's usually about I'd say around that first week in February. And then I start just the basic stuff, maybe cabbage, tomatoes and peppers, that kind of stuff is what usually gets put out. And then there's certain things that I don't seed start. Like I don't seed start beans. I know lately the last few years, like you'll get, cucumbers and melons and stuff like that. I haven't had any luck starting anything like that. That stuff I think is better to put out with seed when the soil warms up. Oh, you're welcome, Dangerous Freedom. I appreciate you being here, guys. In Hudson Valley, I'll be talking to you here just shortly. But anyway, Monkey Food Garden, I always appreciate you modding for me, and I appreciate everybody taking an hour out of their busy schedules to spend it here with you guys. I appreciate each and every one of you guys out there. God bless and take care. We'll see you guys hopefully in a half an hour or so on Hudson Valley's live stream. You guys have a good one.